I'm going to do a short introduction because we actually are also going to have Karen Avelino on our stage, but with a video, and we'll do that before we take our seats. So for all my panel members, thank you very much. After the video, I'll invite you to come on stage. Now, the focus of our session is visible leadership, and how can this foster inclusion? But really, what is visible leadership? If we look at the definition of visible leadership, which may also be referred as visible felt leadership, it is really just what it says. It's the power of a visible and an engaged leader. This transformative approach, and we've heard a lot about transformation and transformative approaches today already. This transformative approach in leadership focuses on the power of presence, the impact of the visible, present leader that they can have on their teams. In an industry that is traditionally characterized by a command and control structure, hierarchical and directive, this concept of felt leadership or visible leadership, about being engaged, being involved, and really being out there, being present. So in the context of Maritime SheEO, we know the power of being visible. We are all here. We are all visible. The women who have paved the way, those women who were first, the women who continue to make the visible difference as we move for increased diversity, equity, and inclusion of gender, but also across all aspects of the LGBTQA+ area. Visible leadership is not about just being seen and being heard, it's about being present, being engaged, and being active. For many of us in the industry, it is a visible leader that helped us get to the position where we are now. It is the need to see it, to believe that we can actually be it. So in order to get us started, I want to invite some wonderful words from a panelist who isn't able to be here, but is definitely here in spirit, and that's for Karen Avelino. So over to the video and over to Karen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Avelino, the Executive Director and Senior Vice President of Philippine Transmarine Carriers Incorporated. And our company is one of the biggest crew management company in the Philippines. First and foremost, thank you, Maritime SheEO, for inviting me to be a part of this panel. It's always an honor to be a part of this passionate and dedicated group of individuals who are committed to transforming the maritime industry. Perhaps it would be fitting to give you an idea on what motivated me to become a leader. I've had several bosses, but the persons who inspired me were two of my lady bosses. I simply became amazed on how they were able to assume leadership, how they think, how they make decisions. They both had different leadership styles. One was so nice, and the other had a character similar to Meryl Streep's The Devil Wears Prada. But both were motivating and inspiring. Both practiced visible leadership. In an era where diversity and inclusion are not just buzzwords, but essential components for success, we must recognize the vital role of visible leadership. And as we navigate the complexities of the maritime industry, it is imperative that we foster an environment where every voice is heard and valued. Inclusion isn't merely about representation. It's about creating a culture that empowers individuals to contribute their unique perspective and talents. Visible leadership plays a pivot role in this process. When leaders actively demonstrate their commitment to inclusion, they set a powerful example for others to follow. The visibility can take many forms, whether it's through transparent communication, equitable decision-making, or championing initiatives that promote diversity. Leaders who make inclusion a priority inspire their teams and create a ripple effect throughout the organization. The benefits of fostering an inclusive environment are profound. Diverse teams bring a wealth of ideas and innovative solutions to the table. They enhance problem solving capabilities and drive business success. Moreover, inclusive workplaces are known to attract and retain top talents, creating a competitive edge in the industry. By embracing visible leadership, we can cultivate a culture where everyone feels empowered to contribute, ultimately enriching our maritime community. Today, as we delve into discussions and share insights, I encourage each of you to reflect on your own leadership styles and the impact you have in promoting inclusion. Let's challenge ourselves to be visible champions of diversity, not just in our words, but through our actions. Together, we can create a maritime industry that truly reflects the richness of our communities. Thank you for your attention and your commitment to fostering inclusion in our field. And I look forward to these engaging conversations and the collective steps which we will take towards visible leadership in our industry. Let's embark on this journey together. Let me pass you on now to Jillian Jackson.
Thank you. Now, could all the panelists please take their seats under their lovely photographs? So, Nafeesa on the far left, far right, Max, Annette, Tanuja, and then Guy. Thank you. And what a wonderful way to start this panel. Now, I'm also going to try and start this panel by keeping on time, so give me a second while I set my timer. And it is going, so the time is going. Now, we're going to have an opportunity to have a discussion up here. There are microphones. I don't think is there one for everybody? Oh, look at that. Oh, wonderful. So you can grab your microphones so you don't lose time getting your microphones later. Guy, yes, thank you. So we'll get ourselves started, and I would like to ensure that we do have this as a conversation. And for those who are online as well, if you have comments or questions, please put them into the chat area of the online platform. And also feel free to continue this conversation after we're finished, and I will invite that again at the end. So just a few ground rules for the panelists, so you guys don't have to listen to this. For the panelists, please keep your answers as concise as possible so that we all have a chance to speak. And we will get started by hearing from the panels. And I would like to ask you all to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what inspired you to be a role, like to be a maritime leader. So what's your role in maritime and what inspired you to be a leader? And I'm going to start with Annette.
Okay, thank you, Jillian. So first, I'm Annette. I'm heading a Norwegian company. It's 50% owned by the Norwegian government, and we deliver high technology to the shipbuilding industry. And in India, we mostly deliver equipment to the Indian Navy and Kongsberg and research institutions. So what inspired me to be a leader? And I think I've been working many years, and in a long career you have a lot, or you meet a lot of people that inspire you. So for me, it's more about the people you meet. It's about your leaders, your peers, your subordinates. And what gives me energy and inspires me is when people are authentic and they dare to be personal, and they also dare to show vulnerability. And I think a person that wishes you well and owns your success. So I think that's my take.
That's an excellent introduction. I like that comment about authentic and authenticity, bringing your whole self to work. Now, I would like actually now to go to Tanuja. Now, Tanuja is new in the maritime industry, so your move here is very exciting. So what has inspired you? What's your role in maritime now, and what inspired you to be a leader?
Yeah. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Tanuja Kaushik. I'm a professor of management and Dean Academic Affairs at Gujarat Maritime University. As Gillian said, I recently moved to maritime sector, but with me, I bring extensive experience in academic leadership. My role involves not just teaching and mentoring, but now also ensuring that I'm able to shape the educational program in the need of maritime industry. As far as my inspiration as a leader is concerned, my inspiration comes from my mother, who is a retired teacher, whose dedication towards her students, encouraged me to understand that the true leadership lies in service and visible commitment to others' growth. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's wonderful. Yes, the people who influence us, and your mother, it's wonderful to hear that, and that concept of mentoring, and mentoring doesn't necessarily need to be that formal mentoring, but also that family mentoring by seeing someone in that role. Thank you so much. I'd like to go to Guy next.
Thank you very much. I'm Guy Platten, and I'm Secretary General of the International Chamber of Shipping. I was just reflecting perhaps that I haven't aged quite as well as my photograph, looking at it now, but there you go. What inspires me, or what motivates me to be a leader, I think, is hopefully to make a difference, and to try and be a force for change where possible. And I've been inspired by so many different mentors along the way that have encouraged me down this path, not least of which is my aunt, actually, who's probably was one of the strongest women I knew, and held no prisoners, to put it that way. So, and she always encouraged me as well to sort of follow this path. So I think, in a nutshell, that's where I am.
Thank you. That's a good nutshell. And I must say, actually, I've known Guy for many years, and I do remember when he looked exactly like that photograph. I'd like to go to Nafeesa next, please.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Moloobhoy, and I'm the Managing Director of the Moloobhoy Group of Companies. We are a 119-year-old company established in 1905. Unlike my esteemed panelists who are there because of their qualification and because of their degrees, I am where I am by default, by virtue of being married to my husband who owned the company. So I got the title of Managing Director purely by default. However, I have retained it by sheer dint of merit. So that's my take and my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful and amazing. Congratulations on the company as well. But the honesty of indicating how you got your role is wonderful, but also the fact that you've worked very hard to be a leader and to maintain that role. Thank you so much. And I'd like to now go to Max, and just tell us a little bit about yourself in maritime and that concept of leadership.
Thank you, Jill. My name is Max Mejia, and I'm president of the World Maritime University, which is based in Malmö, Sweden. And my inspiration to be a leader really goes back about more than 30 years ago, when I was a very junior officer in the Navy, in the Philippine Navy. And I was assigned as an aide-de-camp to the commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard. And in spite of the almost 30 years in seniority between us, he really took the time to mentor not only senior officers, but even junior officers such as myself. Working very closely with him in his office, he gave me the opportunity to witness decision-making and policy-making at the highest levels. And he really gave me the opportunity to take in greater responsibilities in the organization. And basically he was telling me, look, observe, learn. And this is what I want to do as well in my role as a leader, to help mentor colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's got some wonderful phrases in there that those introductory sessions have given me so many keywords already: the authentic, the mentoring really comes through the concept of family, making a difference, being competent, having that merit-based approach. And I love that. Look, observe, and learn. As a leader, those are all very, very good values, and credit to you as well. Thank you so much for those introductory sessions. Now, to get going into the actual meat of the topic, I'd like to hear from each of the panelists on what you think about when you hear this term visible leadership. So what does visible leadership actually mean to you? And I'm just going to start right off with Guy.
Thank you, Gillian. Actually, I was just reflecting, this is the first conference I've been to where we've talked about visible leadership. And it's a long time overdue, at least I've talked about it. To me, visible leadership is doing what you say you're going to do and having a set of values which you follow and never deviate from. And very important, I think, especially in a senior leadership, is that you set an example to all the team you work with. And when you promise something, you deliver on that promise. I think it's so important to me with visible leadership. And that way, hopefully, you can inspire and motivate people and actually become more productive as a result. But I know my team know I've got a set of values, and they know that I try and follow them. So it's about treating everyone equally, treating everyone with respect, and treating everyone how you would like to be treated. And I think those are all the aspects of visible leadership which are really, really fundamental to the way that I operate.
Thank you so much. And I love that thought about leading by example, inspiring, and values. Now, I'm going to go all the way to the other end and go to Nafeesa next for this one. What do you, when you hear the word visible leadership, what does it mean to you?
To me, visible leadership is a term coined by the millennium generation. Has anybody ever heard of invisible leadership? Leadership always meant engaging with your team, leading by example, communicating, fighting for what is right, taking the longer path no matter how difficult. I remember my grandmother in those days. She was one of the first women who learned how to write her name in English. And the leadership that she showed as the matriarch of the family, I still try and emulate and try and reach her standards. So to me, whether visible or invisible, the term leadership means to lead with courage, confidence, conviction, and most importantly, strength. Thank you.
Courage and confidence and conviction. It's very interesting because when you do the research as well, there are, and I've had a couple invisible leaders. But the concept of leadership, though, that you provide us with is that it's not just a position, but it is a way of being. And the concept is that we are all leaders in that essence. Thank you so much, Nafeesa. I'm going to go to Annette next.
So when I think about visible leadership, I think about people that commit to change. And I think we need leaders who are present, accessible, and actively engaged with their teams and inspire trust. And I have an example from our office. We have a department leader, Pradeep Pillai. We were to hire a service engineer, and we had an open position, and the best candidate was a female. And then we debated, should we do it, should we not? Related to the harsh environment on the yards, out on the ships. So it was a question, should we put this female out in this harsh environment? And then Pradeep, he said, I have a girl, and I want her to have equal opportunities and the right to choose whatever she would like to become. So he said, I would take the risk to hire her. We hired her, and I think it was a great example. We have now also hired more female engineers. She's the first mechanical service engineer in the APAC region in our company. So I think he dared to do the first move, and he was committed to change. And I think that's about visible leadership.
Thank you, and congratulations to him as well in taking the step to do that. When you started telling your story and you were saying that, that the most qualified was a woman, and then we started questioning, my initial thought was my I don't know about everybody else out there, but my back's sort of going up a bit. Why would you even question it? But it is true the way you explain that, and thank goodness the leader took that, had the courage to make that step and make that change. I'm going to go to Max next.
Thank you. Visible leadership, I think of being there and being felt most of the time. And I don't mean in the sense of being, you know, the big brother, big sister sort of presence, but really accessibility and not mere physical visibility, but in a psychological sense as well. Because otherwise, you may physically be present, but if you're aloof, you're inaccessible, then you're not able to engage with colleagues, and you become like a mere mental construct. You know, the leader is there, but he or she is a phantom. And without interaction and engagement, of course, you have a disconnected and unappreciated set of colleagues. So I think it's very important to be there, not only physically, but even your presence felt as being accessible, not only with the open office, but the office actually welcome you in and being greeted with a smile that, you know, yes, I appreciate you being here. You're not wasting my time.
I think that's wonderful, and you're not wasting our time, that's for sure. The concept of accessibility, so a leader is a leader in name, but also has to be there to be visible, to be accessible, and to be engaged. I'd like now to go to Tanuja.
Yeah. So to me, visible leadership means being present, approachable, and committed to whatever you do. It's not all about reaching goals and achieving targets. It's more about how we act day to day. It's about showing inclusion, courage, and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you. And to summarize that session, that's so many different excellent questions and answers that we have in there. We question ourselves as leaders. Are we accessible? Are we actually visible? Are we engaged? Do we have that courage, confidence, and commitment for change that we need? Now, we have a few questions that I'd like to move on to, and we're doing very well. Thank you very much for my panel. I think I must have given them their instructions very well. It's good to have that. I'd like to get into this concept. All of those answers sort of lead me to this idea of visible leadership in the maritime industry. Now, to start us off, thinking about what inspired you as a leader, which we went to first, and what your thoughts are on visible leadership, which was our second question, I'd like to combine those together and think, what do you think is the role for visible leadership in the maritime industry? And I'm going to start off with Max on this one, but others are welcome to join in if you want. But over to you, Max.
Thanks. I think the role of visible leadership in maritime can best be served by the visible leader encouraging and promoting buy-in and ownership of policies and ideas. Yes, of course, the leader needs to be there. Someone needs to have the mandate to make the final decision and be accountable for the impact and the effects of any decision that is made. But any decision or policy can only be enriched by ideas that are shared by everyone on staff. Especially in maritime today, facing all of these challenges that we witness around the world, geopolitical strife and conflict, climate change, the green transition, all of these require innovative and novel ideas. And if you don't have an accessible leadership approach, then you don't get the many ideas that can be shared with you by your colleagues in order to enrich again and help you in making the right decision.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to jump in on that one about what it means to be a visible leader in the maritime industry? No? I think that's some really good comments. I was going to actually look at Guy, because you've had a lot of experience as a leader in various areas in the industry. What else do you think might be linking it together? What's the role for visible leadership in an industry such as the maritime industry?
I think you need to listen to your colleagues. I think you've also got to have the courage to admit when you're wrong about things, and not feel you're always in the right. So I think that's really, really important. I mean, it's about some thought leadership as well, about giving people a sense of direction, travel and hope as well. I think that's really important when you lead an organization, which is the biggest privilege going, I think. But you need to be respectful of that and humble about it as well. So to me, it is, and sometimes I think leadership is also about loneliness, because I think there's times where we have to make decisions which are hard, but we still need to lead and inspire our team. So I always say to people we're inspired to be leaders. You have to be humble. You also have to be able to deal with isolation and loneliness as well, because sometimes that's needed. And I think putting others before yourself is really important, to make sure your team is looked after before you look after yourself as well. So there's so many different facets that you could go on forever about this.
That's fantastic, that concept almost of servant leadership and putting others before yourself. It reminds me of, so David Marquette has put a really good video and book out there called Turn That Ship Around, about the maritime industry and putting in a very visible leadership and inclusive leadership style in a command and control environment such as the US submarines. So it's a really interesting concept. Thank you for that. And Nafeesa, did you have something you wanted to say?
I want to just share a quote by our ex-president, Abdul Kalam Azad, which really inspired me. I still haven't reached, I haven't achieved emulating every word of what he said, but I'd love to share this with you. It's not verbatim, and it's not restricted only the maritime industry, but it's applicable across the board. And he says, what is leadership? It's about the change of the traditional role of leadership, from commander to coach, from director to delegator, from manager to mentor, from one who demands respect to one who facilitates self-respect. This has always been my guiding principle in my style of leadership, and it has really inspired me. I hope you find it as inspiring, and it resonates with you too. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is very, very inspiring. And that one from the concept of manager to mentor, and someone who demands respect to someone who encourages or facilitates self-respect. And I think that self-respect, we want to underline that aspect. We cannot be a visible leader or a leader of any type if we don't have self-respect. Thank you. I'd like to move on to another question now, because there's so many great ideas coming out. It says, well, why don't we take a look at this concept of the continuing movement to support women in the maritime industry? Now, I think, Annette, your story really resonated with me. So as we're looking at women in maritime in the industry, we still have far to go. We do have now a new female in a very technical role, which is lovely to see. But what role do you think leadership has to play in this concept of promoting, I'm not going to say equality, I want to say equity, because sometimes equality isn't enough. We need to look beyond that to equity. So what is the role of leadership in promoting equity within the industry? So I'd like to start with you, Annette.
Yeah, I think that leadership plays a crucial role in promoting equity, as you say. And I think it's several things we could do. And I think the first one is to set clear goals and inclusive policies. We need to make sure that it fosters inclusivity. And I know that some companies, they are saying that we don't want to work with other companies that does not have a diverse workforce. It's like sustainability. You don't want to work with a company that don't have these sustainability measures. It could be the same with diversity. And also to foster a culture that values diversity. I think that's important. And one example is that the Indian Navy, when I came to India 1 year ago, I learned that one of the newest warships that the Indian Navy have built, it has been fitted with cabins exclusively for female officers. So I think that's fantastic. And I think KPIs, what you measure is what you get. And if you also connect them to increments and bonus schemes, it's even more effectful when you feel it on your pocket. And when we started to measure diversity 5 years back in our Indian entity, we have increased 33% the last 5 years. So now we have like 18% females. So that also shows that putting measures and KPIs, it works. We also actively champion opportunities for females. We had one of our female leaders. She was deputed to Singapore 2 months for cross-cultural training. Mentorship programs, addressing gender biases. We have a zero tolerance for harassment, especially against females. And leadership training, and that's on a group level. We have a new leadership training program. It's called Leadership for the Future, and there we have diversity as one of the themes. So I think that's also because we need to engage the men. It's not just the females that could do the change. We need to engage the men because they're often in the positions where the decisions are made. And then we need to make sure that we have recruitment and advance practices, that they are fair and transparent. So I think by leading with commitment and accountability sets powerful examples and creates an inclusive environment.
I think those are some really great comments on there. I might actually come back to the KPIs a bit later. The idea of KPIs or quotas, I know, can be very fraught and very emotional for many people, but that idea of having clear goals, I like the link of, would you work with a company that has a poor safety record? So why would you work with a company? Of course you wouldn't work with a company with a poor safety record, you'd look to see that. But then to actually make that step and work with a company that has a strong diversity record, I think that's a really, really key point on that. Does anybody want to step on that before I move on to the next question? Any itching comments? Yes, I think Guy. Go for it.
Just taken by that, so some of the things you said, Annette, really, really interesting. As well about not tolerating various behaviours. That's really important. And I think not just from within your own team, but also for external partners as well. I think that's vital that you have a set of standards and that everyone knows that these things will play out. So we try and live that, certainly at ICS. I'm very proud now that, in fact, we've got over 50% of the team at ICS now are female. That's good. Not as many as in the senior positions as I would like, but that will come in time, I'm sure. I'm proud that my daughter's a ship's captain, and actually I was meeting someone today at the coffee break, and she follows my daughter on Instagram, and also now my granddaughter, who's probably got more sea time than most 18-month-olds, so which is really good. But I think, yeah, it's making sure you're consistent. And once people, I think, see that you've got these values, they do respect them. But I think certainly making sure that the tolerance level is zero for inappropriate behaviour.
That zero tolerance, it's really interesting because it's also very, very difficult sometimes to measure and to identify the different levels of tolerance. So somebody might find something offensive that someone else doesn't. And I think that gets really, really difficult when it comes into that concept of zero, that there's a zero tolerance. So where does that fit? Actually, I'd like to go back to the KPIs in a way, because it's something that has been in my career. So I started in the maritime industry in 1983. And when I started in the industry, I was told that just 2% of seafarers were female. And I thought, oh, that's horrible. I'm young, I'm energetic, I'm going to help change that. I'm going to go to sea. And then in 2021, the ICS report came in, and it was 1.2% of seafarers were female. I've been here 40 years, and it's gone backwards. How could we do that? But by moving that needle, how do we move that needle the other way, and what's the role of leadership in moving that needle the other way? I'm actually going to start with Guy on this one, because you just mentioned about your own family experiences as well with your daughter and the aspect of leadership. What's the role of leadership now, visible leadership, inclusive leadership, and helping to move that needle?
I think I've been really impressed. That Subsea 7 video was excellent, and I think the fact they're making real concerted efforts to get more female participation at cadet level, because you've got to bring people in at the bottom to eventually have the maritime leaders of the future. So I think, and I've seen good examples, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines does the same thing, and other really good examples of trying to actually get that diversity bedded in very early on, and that's going to play out going forward. So to me, you're right, the percentage figures are dismal still, but I do sense now, and actually Sanjam's report today, there is definitely moving forward. I think things are getting better, but we certainly can't be complacent, and there's so much more to do. I think my daughter went to sea because, like many families, you often see, what do you do, Dad? And then just following that, the same thing. She wanted to be a vet, didn't quite get the grades, so she went to sea. So, but we need to somehow reach out to a much wider diaspora to encourage females to come and join this great industry.
Thank you. I love that one. Actually, I will say, in the audience, how many people went to sea because their fathers went to sea? Come on, come on, come on, get your hands up there. I'm sure there's some other people out there. Because it is a family trait, isn't it? We often go and we look what our family's doing, and we have that, comes back to that first comment that we had. The family has such an impact on how we see ourselves. So that leadership role, that visible leadership role, may not necessarily be a leader in the concept of a CEO or a managing director, but within the family environment. I'd actually like to go to Max and get your thoughts on this as well, because from an educational point of view with the World Maritime University, what are your thoughts for how we can help move that needle? And knowing in 40 years we went backwards, how can we move forwards?
I think going back to your experience where, like you said, the needle hasn't really moved, and I think we need to do really much more in terms of convincing girls and young women that the seafarer career, maritime education and training, are not only viable, but they're very attractive options, and that out of this career you get some very unique technical qualifications that are very much in demand, not only for women, but overall. So kudos to Dr. Malini and the Indian Maritime University about how they've been able to raise the number of enrollment of women. But I think also I'd like to go back to fast forward to the end of the sort of career where it's also very important to see women in leadership positions in maritime education and training and other organizations. And I'd like to put forward the example today in the United States, where you have both the Chief of Naval Operations and the Commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard being women, and the Superintendent of the United States Merchant Marine Academy and the Superintendent of the United States Naval Academy, all women. And of course, I know this will take time, but I'm hoping that situations such as this will have a significant impact on recruiting women into maritime and naval services.
And I think we should have a round of applause for that, because it is phenomenal that that happened. And that is a true example of this idea of visible leadership and the impact it can have, because people will look at that. Young girls will look at that and they will see someone in a role, and they will actually believe that they can see themselves in that role later on. Just sort of sticking, I guess, from the educational point of view, really, and Tanuja, I'd like to ask you this question. You are leaders, so as leaders yourself, what are some of the 4 key activities that you do to be a visible leader?
Yeah, before answering that, I would like to come to the previous question. I think we need more female models, role models, so that we can have more participation of female in maritime industry. And we at Gujarat Maritime University, we started in 2019. We are more into commercial programs where since 2019 till date, we have 5 batches passing out. And I'm very proud to say that 50% of our students are female students. We are into maritime law and maritime management, and it really feels great. Now coming to your question, what are the key activities to be a visible leader? I will say 3 activities which I prioritize. Number 1, regularly interacting with students, colleagues, and industry experts to gain insight, to build trust, and to understand their needs. Number 2, leading by example. You need to be consistent with your words and action. And number 3, being open to different activities, commitment, and being open to diversity and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Some really, really good examples there of what it means to be a visible leader. I just want to take time for one more question because I think it's really pertinent with our discussion that we've got. And from your opening, Nafeesa, I really got the feeling that there were some challenges that you probably faced in your role. So what are some of the challenges that you faced in your leadership journey, and how did you overcome these challenges?
When I joined the company, as I said, by default, my husband, it was in the family for, at that time, 96 years, and my husband had fallen sick, and we had 2 options. He was the only son. Either we could close the company, or I could take it over and run the company, and which is what I did. This was about 23, 24 years ago. Believe me, 23, 24 years, there were no women around at all. I remember going for conferences, and the chairman of the conference would say, "My dear gentlemen," and then I would cough, and then he would say, "And of course, madam." So that's something that I've grown used to. But this much I will say, and I really, really appreciated the Indian maritime industry, and in fact I would say even the international, because we represent so many OEMs across the world. The initial question, when they met me initially, the eyebrow would go up, and like, "Oh, Mrs. Moloobhoy, really?" And after about maybe an hour or half an hour of just chatting and breaking ice, my gender never was ever an issue. I have worked for 23 years. We've taken when I took over the company, had a turnover about 3-4 crores or 7 crores of rupees. In the next 3 years, we are going to list and become a public listed company. So the growth, by the grace of God, has been phenomenal. And never once did my gender come in the way. To take it further, I had no son. I only had 2 daughters. And I then insisted that they join me in the business. And they work with me, though they claim they work for me. And neither of them also faced any challenges. My older daughter, Ghazala, heads our GCC, the branches in the GCC country. And those are all male-dominated Arab countries. She goes as a young girl, markets our products. We've done extremely well there. And she's never faced any obstacle or real hindrance, gender-based. So I'm extremely grateful to this wonderful industry for welcoming not 1, but 3 women from our family into their fold with open hearts and really with no hang-ups. We are so grateful, and I hope that my granddaughters, because in the last 11 months, I've become grandmother to 3 grandchildren. My one daughter had twins, both girls, and one is a son. So I hope the twins, when they grow up and we list and we continue for another 119 years, they too will come and join the industry, and it'll be women all over.
What a wonderful thought. Thank you so much for that, and for all of your wonderful insights. Now, it is time for us to close out this session. The time does fly by so quickly, but I want to give you each a chance to give me one quick, either a word or a sentence, something that summarizes the value that you have seen in visible leadership. And I'm going to start with you, Tanuja. Very quickly.
Well, in one sentence, visible leadership enabled me to foster trust, inclusion, and resilience, paving the way for others to feel empowered to lead.
The trust to empower to lead. Thank you. I'm going to go to Max next.
With the visible leadership, you will be able to attract a wider and broader range of ideas that will not only enrich decision and policy making, but help break down obstacles to effective implementation.
Fantastic. Nafeesa.
Visible leadership in literally one sentence, making a difference.
Making a difference. Love that. Annette.
Yeah, it brings me back to where you started, Gillian. It's the need to see it, believe it, in order to be it. And I think it's about walk the talk, not to talk the walk. Be authentic, and then people will follow you.
Wonderful. And Guy.
It's hard to build on what's been said just then, but I would say what I have taken from today is some inspiration from the opening speeches and from this panel as well. I really do think we're on the cusp of change. I see so many high-level female CEOs now in our industry, and it's just really heartening to know that I think things are only going to accelerate from here. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all on my panel. And I do want to leave all of you in the audience and also everyone online, and I'm hoping that there'll be some great comments online. I'll be looking at those later. What is one thing that you do or you are going to do to be a visible leader? So maybe during the next breaks, you can meet up with somebody, have a bit of a chat, and use this as an opening question. What are you going to do as a visible leader? And I look forward to talking to you as well, perhaps during the breaks. So thank you very much, and join me in thanking my wonderful speakers for a very engaging session.
Thank you very much to all the